Have you struggled with flappy, floppy brag mats, like fish measuring mats on your kayak? Today I'm going to show you how to make cool brag mats like the ones up behind me. They roll out like this one. They go rigid like this. Pull them tight, boom. You've got a brag mat that'll work anywhere out on the kayak. Even if you're just walking around and you need somewhere like flat and stable to put your fish on to measure it. And then of course when you're done with it, flattens out, rolls up, and then you put it away for storage for the next fish. So let's get into it. So this is the brag mat we'll be making today. You can go down to Bunnings and get everything you need to do this guy. It only requires like the most basic of tools. The only power tool I think it requires is a glue gun. We'll get into that in just a second, but they're only a few bucks. You get it from the same place as everything else. So the brag mat we'll be making, instead of the fancy ones that are behind me, I mean there isn't much in it. The difference is like the print quality and things like that. But if all you need is a measure, then you'll end up with something a bit like this for for not much money. Okay, so this is the basic one. This is the first one that I ever made before, just as a proof of concept before I went to printers and things like that. And it works just as well. It's really good stuff, and it's even a little bit more compact than the meter ones because of restriction, which we'll get into now. So to make one of these, you will need to get yourself a sheet of Corflute, like this guy here, from Bunnings. This is a 900mm by 600 by 5mm sheet. And there is a bigger one, there is a 1200mm sheet, which would get you a meter length. Unfortunately, the flutes run in the wrong direction. So you want flutes running in the length of your mat, because that'll give you the stiffness you want over the length. So the biggest they have there is a 900mm sheet, which once we fold up the end a little bit will yield an 800mm measurable area. So that's the length that we're stuck with. But most fish are less than that. If you need more than that, you could probably find a bigger sheet of Corflute somewhere else, or you could buy one off me. They go to a meter, no worries. So it's 600mm this way. We're going to cut it in half this way, and then it's going to give you 2 mats. This is $9, so that's $4.50 per mat so far. The type of glue that we're using is a hot glue. So I just went down to, again, at Bunnings, you get yourself some hot glue. You can get it with the glue gun if you don't have it already. This is a very cheap glue gun that I got like 15 years ago. All of the stickers have fallen off of it. It's covered in crud, but still works, still does a good job, and hot glue is the only thing that sticks to Corflute. Now, the other few things you need, you'll need like a knife, just something to cut the Corflute to pieces. A bit of shock cord. So this is a 4mm shock cord. You can buy it per meter if you want, and I think it's like $3 per meter, so you only need like 50 centimeters of it. Oh, here we go. A little spare bit that I had left over. So yeah, like 1 meter will do two mats, no worries. So I think you're up to about, was it 9 plus 3 to do 2 mats? So $12 2 mats, $6 a mat so far. You'll also need one of these guys here. It's called a cord lock. You can buy them off of eBay for like $3 for a pack or something like that. The only thing we need, like the specs that we need, is we want it to be taller than 20 mils, because our sheet, our thickness end is going to be about 20 mils thick. So you want it to be just a little bit taller than that, so it sticks out the top. and the hole has to be, you know, bigger than 5 mils so the cord goes through it like that. And to make the markings on the mat, we're actually going to need, so you can either use like a Sharpie or whatever this is, like a, I don't know, a big marker. So you could use a marker to draw the lines on your straight onto the Corflute, and then whack a bit of like packing tape over the top of it, and that'll stop the ink from coming off on fish or wearing off on boats or whatever you want. Alternatively, if you want to save a couple of minutes and spend a couple of bucks, you can get these fish measure sticker things. This is a Wilson one, which I got from one of the online tackle stores. They basically sell them for boats, so they stick it on the gunnels, and then you can just, you know, directly measure the fish on the gunnel. So I just bought this. It was like, I think it might have been $7, and then you just whack it straight onto, you know, cut it off at the 0 centimeters, whack it right into the end of the mat, and you're all good to measure. To measure out and make all the cuts, I use steel rulers. I've got this big 1 meter steel ruler that I use to measure my lengths, but you don't need a 1 meter ruler. It's just a bit more convenient. A 30 centimeter ruler is more than enough because the width of the board is 30 centimeters, and of course no length is going to go over 30 centimeters that you need to measure. So that's fine. 2 is better. 1 is good. So let's get cracking. We're going to cut this thing up a little bit and then do a little bit of gluing, and then we're pretty much done. So let's get at it. So we'll just use our little ruler here, and we're going to make a mark at 30 centimeters in. Okay, I'll use my little ruler as well. Alright, 30 centimeters. This will give us our cut for our 2 mats. Doesn't have to be exact. But as long as it's good. I'm going to cheat and use my big ruler. Here we go. Cheat and use the big ruler. Pull it towards the edge of the mat. Alrighty. And my knife. Knife time. Alright. Just going to make sure it's a nice clean cut. Alright, just pull that little bit of fuzz off. Now it's looking a bit more like a mat. We've now got 2 mats. 2 mats to play with. There we go. We're going to take our knife and our ruler and our ballpoint pen, and we are going to fold the end up. Alright, so we're going to make the stiffening part of the end. So we're going to take our ruler and you're going to measure 2.5 centimeters from the end and make a mark with the pen. Then 5 centimeters from the end, make a mark with the pen, and then 7.5 centimeters and mark it with a pen. Alright, and we're going to do the same at the top here. 2.5, 5, and 7.5. That's all good. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut like on alternating sides. So at 7.5 we cut on this side, then at 5 we cut on the other side, and then at 2.5 we cut on this side. And why we do that will become apparent in a sec. So we're taking our knife and we're going to make the cut at 7.5, and we're going to make the cuts. Now with this cut you want to make it so it only cuts through the top skin of the Corflute. You don't want to hit the bottom skin of the Corflute because that will weaken the cut. We want the opposite skin to just bend. As soon as it has a nick in it, it has sort of a weak point, and then you'll develop a tear. That's not as important for this bit here, but it is very important for what we're going to be doing later, because it will that'll destroy the integrity of the entire mat if you make a nick when we get to our folding joints. Alright, so I'm just going to make the second cut at 2.5 centimeters. So on this side the cuts are at 2.5. So we've got a cut at 2.5 centimeters and a cut at 7.5 centimeters. Alright, flipping it over to the other side now, we're going to take our measurements And we're going to measure just to 5 centimeters. Make a mark. Alright. And at this end, 5 centimeters and make a mark. Okay, cool. And we're going to make a cut on this side. So this is the opposite side to the other two cuts. We will now make a cut right in the middle of them at 5 centimeters. Alrighty. There we go. Okay. So now we've got a cut on this side, 1, and 2 cuts on this side, 2.5 and 7.5 centimeters. So now we're going to fold it. You can fold it using like the corner of a bench or something, but it's pretty easy to fold. All right, fold it once, and then we're going to fold it at the next mark, going the other way. So you'll see it starts to concertina, and then we're going to do our last fold like this. There we go, and done. Okay. So now we're going to take a hot glue gun and glue these down. And if you're really, so the goal with gluing is to do it very, very quickly. You want the glue to be as hot as possible when you glue it down. So I highly advise doing each one separately and then gluing it, and then waiting for it to cool and gluing the next one. Yeah, that's got a bit of temperature in it. You want to make sure your glue gun is very hot. It's completely soaked through with heat, so it doesn't slow down at all, because you have to do it in one good quick punch and then slam the door shut. You also want to make sure that it's clean. You don't really want to get too many like finger oils on it or anything. Basically, the cleaner the surface, the better. The hotter the glue, the better. We're gonna lay down one line of glue here. So I like to just push the glue stick down because the trigger isn't going to have enough throw to do it in one go, and then whack it shut like that. And that will give us a good glue joint. And you basically just want to lean on it for a good amount of time. If you have like a piece of like square timber or something, like something stiff that you can wedge down, you'll get like more even pressure across the whole joint, because you want to avoid any bubbles. You want to use a good amount of pressure. The Corflute is very strong. It'll hold quite a bit of pressure. You won't dent it very easily at all. And then it should be good. That'll do. And there we go. That's our first joint laid down. Looks pretty good. You want to make sure you get the ends nice. Like put a blob at the ends, because obviously like joints peel from the edges. So if you get the ends glued down, the middle's all right. Okay, cool. We'll slap our second row of glue down. I always have a spare glue stick out with me, just so if it runs a bit low, I can whack that in like mid-stream and punch it through to the next and get the whole thing down again. So we're going to go again. And I'm going to need that second glue stick here, actually. Just going to punch plenty in, a little bit there, I think. Alright, that'll do. Yep. And then really get that pressure on it. Yep. There we go. You want to push any bubbles out. So you get like a really nice even smear of glue across the whole joint. Looking really nice and square here. Okay, and then we'll get the top one done. And that's us done for gluing. This is easy. There we go. Get that out of the way. Whack that on. Get my ruler down. There we go. So now you end up with a nice solid little block at the end here. It's now 4 rows tall. And this is where our cord's going to come out. It's also what's going to be used to like wedge it into its V shape, so it doesn't collapse in on itself, and also provides a good amount of stiffness to the board. Cool, so now we're up to the part where we're going to measure out our rolling cuts. Now, you can use some measurements that I've worked out from when I've done a few of these. I think we'll go with the measurements. I'll put them up on the screen for you. So let's get started with that. For this I might actually use my I'll use a small ruler. Let's just do it old school style. Alrighty. So we're going to measure it up. Alright. Cool. Now we're going to make our cuts. These are the important cuts. These cuts are the ones that you can only go through the top skin for these cuts. So shallower is better, like too shallow is better than too deep. As long as you cut the top skin, you don't have to worry about cutting like the flutes, because they will tear when you bend it. And that is much preferable to nicking the inner skin of the other side, because that will cause a rip. And then eventually it'll get floppy. It'll actually tear, and there's sort of, once it's started, you can't stop it. So you've got to you just got to not touch that skin. So I would recommend using a very low exposure on a Stanley knife like this, and being very careful. You can feel it, like once it's cut through the top skin, you'll feel it go drrrr, and then that's when you know you're into the flutes. Okay, now we get to the folding. Alright, for this I do recommend using the end of the desk. Let's see if it fits on my desk without hitting the camera. And then you can just press down with your palms and it'll fold like that. One fold. There we go. So this is like, I've made it a little too thin, which is preferable because, of course, because I made that score, it will cut, but it will not hit the other side. So it gives you a better joint if you go too shallow than if you go too deep. And you can sort of tell from the first couple of cuts whether or not you're on course. And we're just going to keep pressing. There we go. There we go. We've got a rolly mat now. And now we've got a board which rolls up. Okay, so we're getting there now. We've now got a rolled mat. The thing we need to do now is make sure it can turn into a V shape. So we're going to unroll it again. Roll it all the way back out. Flip it over onto its back. And we're going to cut it lengthways now, using the old knife. And we're going to cut just this side. We're just going to cut this layer running lengthways. So I'm going to take my ruler again, and we're going to measure ourselves halfway along this 30 centimeter mat. So it's 15 centimeters. So now we're going to cut a line that goes all the way between them, and then our board will mostly bend. Okay, we're going to make our cut. Again, we're only cutting through the top layer. It's a lot easier to feel this way than cutting across the flutes. So there it goes, and we're starting to get that V shape, and the V shape is what stops it from like rolling up on itself. So all we need to do now is make sure it can form a V at this end where we built this block up. And the way we're going to fix that is by cutting some of these blocks away so it sort of forms like a V shape, like a wedge, and then those two wedge faces will sort of hit each other, and that's what limits how deep the V gets, so you don't pancake your fish with the elastic. Alright, what we're going to do now is we're going to cut these blocks away. This could be a little bit fiddly, but I'll show you what we're doing. So just like with the bottom side, where we've got the cut on the bottom side here, and we're going to follow that all the way up to the top, and then we're going to cut this Corflute, which lines up, I've switched to a smaller knife now, just to make it a bit easier. And we're going to cut it. I'll show it to one of the cameras. We're going to cut this one now, which is this guy right here, and it's going to line up. So I'm just going to cut that one in half, like that. Okay. Now, with this, we're going to keep the top skin, because we're actually going to bend that down, and it's going to form like a nice hard surface for us. So we're going to cut this out, and we're just going to start excavating these blocks out underneath it. I'll show you the pattern that we come up with once it's done. It'll all be it's very simple. It's very clear. So I'm just going to cut away for a little bit, and then we'll come back with an after picture for you. All right. So what I've done here is I've cut 3 of the vertical flutes from each side on the top row. So it's just got that cut in the middle right at the top, and then we cut out 3 floats under, and you can see it can like bend down on both sides. So on the next row we're going to do the same, but we're going to cut 2 flutes on each side. So that leaves like a gap of 4 and a gap of 6, and then the bottom row we'll leave a gap of 2. So we cut one flute out of the middle, and then that's enough, and we get that nice 45-degree wedge. So that's what we're going for here. Back to it. Alright, so now we've got 2 of the rows cleared out, as you can see there. So 6 taken out of the top row and 4 taken out of the second row. 1 row to go, and then this thing's almost done. And there we have it. So the whole thing is cut out now. So this will actually, what we're going to do here is we're going to take these, and they're going to bend down like this. So it's going to look like that when we're done. So it's going to have like a nice smooth curve. And how we're going to do that is we're going to take some paddle pop sticks that I've got lying around. We're going to wedge them in here, and then we're going to hot glue these sides down, and so it'll fill all the holes, which will like stiffen it, and that'll stop them from being compressed later on in use. So let's get on to the bending now. The paddle pop sticks are just the easiest way that I know. I got a bunch of these for just messing around with hot glue and things. So what you do is you just take a whole pack of them like that. So like 5 or 6, then you just wedge them in the hole. And you can just keep adding them in until it's nice and tight. I think we can usually get like 6 in there. There we go. So how many have I got in there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So we've got 6 wedged in there now. And that's going to give a nice curved shape. Right. So that's up to temperature now. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to fill the top of it. All those little curved gaps in there, we're just going to fill up with a bit of hot glue. So you just shoot it in, and then it's going to start to come out the other side, and that's when you know you've gone far enough. So we're just going to start inserting that. Okay. And I'm going to fill up the little, like any square that's like next to the edge. Any edge square I'm going to fill up with a little bit as well. I'm just going to inject a little blob in, because that'll actually stiffen it up and make it a bit stronger. And that's good enough. So it's a bit stringy and messy, but it's got a good curve to it. Just wedge those down. And when that dries, so you can sort of see it in there, just leave the paddle pop sticks in for a couple of minutes until it hardens. But we've filled in these curved pieces, and then we filled in the little squares that run around the perimeter as well, and that'll make it nice and strong. Actually, while we've got the iron on, there's a couple more holes that we're going to fill, because we're going to run the cord, the elastic, through these holes. I like to just fill the adjacent holes to where we're going through, and that'll stop the cord from like deforming the and wearing out the Corflutes. So we're just going to fill a couple of these into a little cross pattern on the left side here. So let's see. We're going to have it running, because the cord's going to be running through the second row down. We're going to fill one that's 2 in from the sides, and you just inject that through till it comes on the other side a little bit. We're going to leave a gap and then inject the one next to that. And then we're going to do one above where our cord's going to go through. Yep. And then we're going to do one below where the cord's going to go through. There we go. Almost there. The last part will be putting our little cord lock in and installing it on this side here like this. And to do that, we're going to need a drill. So let me just, here we go. What we're going to need is a drill, cordless drill. You could do this with a knife and just like cut a circular hole down, but a drill's going to be a bit faster. And we need a drill bit like this. We're going to need a drill bit the same size as our cord lock. So there we go. What's this one? This is an 8mm drill bit, and our cord lock's there. So we're just going to do this. Alrighty. And what we're going to do is we're going to drill straight into the middle of one of our flutes, just a little bit in from the side. So we want to leave a couple of spare spaces from the side, and then we're going to insert our drill, and we're going to drill all the way to the bottom, but we don't really want to go through that bottom sheet of Corflute. We just want to leave the bottom skin of the bottom layer intact, because we're going to insert this into the top of the hole, and it's going to butt against that bottom sheet so it doesn't fall all the way through. So that's what we're going to do. I just have to grab the battery off of my lights because they're running some lights at the moment. I only have one of these Ryobi batteries. But yeah, we'll cut to that. Okay, drill baby drill. So we're going to put it on. I'm just going to spin it on backwards for a sec. Press it into the Corflute and spin it backwards. There we go. So I've spun it backwards, which is going to actually like press the Corflute down instead of biting it, because if this drill bit bites the Corflute, it could like lift the layers apart. So I just had it on reverse and pressed it down, and it got a bit hot on the tip, and that's just going to cut its way through and like melt the glue a little bit as well. So now I've reversed it, it's on forwards again, and we're going to use very light pressure. And there we go. And that should have gone the whole way down. So you want to do that, make that hole right in the middle of one of the flutes. So that way the cord can go through the hole, and of course the hole is in the middle of this guy here. And then we can just press him into the hole. So now we just need our string again. And it helps if you use a lighter to just like tidy up the end and sort of like plastic seal it a little bit. So I always have a lighter with me just for that reason there. And now we're just going to get this through the center hole here. Woo! And there we go. Push the button and it slides. Release the button and it doesn't slide. So there we go, we've got a little press button going on there. Right, so with the cord, we've just taken our cord, we've rammed it through here, and I've tied a loop knot on this end, and then just a little knot on this end. He's come out right in the middle of that cross that we made out of the glue. So that hole we left in the middle, we poke that through, we run it down, and then we pass it through this end, through the little button that we made. So it's going through that little cord lock, and then we've got a loop on the end of here. And then, like, you could either use the measurement sticker that I've used, or you can draw your own measurements on, like I've just done it with this one. And then I've wrapped it with a little bit of book covering that I had lying around. I mean, you could use the packing tape to whip it over these lines to stop them from getting a bit blurry, stop them from wearing out a little bit. But I've put a little bit of book covering on, which you can get for cheap and easy, and then that's going to protect that nicely. And we've got those markings that we just drew on with that pen. Just drew those markings on, and it's all good to go. We've got 80 centimeters on the mat. If you want more gradation, like if you want 1 centimeter marks, I mean, you can spend your time doing that, but I'm lazy and I usually just opt for the sticker method. But yeah, there we go, one completed brag mat. We've got a little string here. You see, like, if you pull the string, it locks it in place. And then yeah, that's a nice rigid brag mat you can put your fish on, no worries, and it won't flop around anymore. Easy for photographs and things. Then you just press your button and pull it flat like that, and then it sits flat again and it will roll up. You can put it away, ready to catch another fish. And there you have it, a brag mat that you can use anywhere. It isn't floppy and annoying to use, and only costs about, I don't know, $10 max to make. Get out there and give it a go, and let me know how you go. Awesome. Thanks, guys. See ya.